In the dazzling world of the elite, a single word can build or destroy a fortune. But for Anna Hinson, a waitress struggling to make ends meet, it was a phrase spoken in a language she wasn't supposed to understand that would change everything. When the relentless billionaire Klaus Richter insulted her in his native German, he thought she was just another invisible server. He never imagined this quiet, unassuming woman would not only comprehend his cruel words, but would reply with chilling perfection that shattered his arrogance and exposed the truth behind his powerful facade. This is the story of how a flawless retort in a foreign tongue sparked a battle of wits nobody saw coming. The Golden Spoon's relentless rhythm was a world unto itself. It was a universe of clinking silver, whispered conversations, and silent figures making the magic happen. For Anna Hinson, this universe was both a sanctuary and a cage. At 24, she moved through the opulent dining room with a practiced grace that concealed the exhaustion simmering just beneath the surface. Her immaculate white uniform was her armor, her polite smile, her shield. Anna wasn't merely a waitress. In her small, book-filled apartment, a world away from the velvet-draped walls of the restaurant, she was a scholar. She was a senior linguistics student at Columbia University, a place she could only afford thanks to a combination of scholarships, student loans, and the grueling 10-hour shifts she worked in this temple of haute cuisine. Her passion was the architecture of language, the intricate ways cultures communicated, and often misunderstood each other. She could master the subtle syntax of Mandarin debate, the poetry of Farsi, and dream in the romantic cadence of Italian. This job, with its parade of international clientele, was a living laboratory, but also a constant, humiliating reminder of the chasm between her dreams and her reality. Her daily battlefield was populated by a familiar cast of characters. There was Mr. Harrison, the restaurant manager, a man whose ambition had long since soured into a permanent state of anxious irritation. He patrolled the dining room like a nervous general, his eyes constantly searching for a misplaced fork or a grimace of dissatisfaction. To him, the staff were interchangeable parts in his meticulously polished machine. A smile for a wealthy client was worth more than an employee's week of hard labor. Then there was Jessica. Jessica, sharp-featured and ever-watchful, had been at the Golden Spoon for 5 years, wearing her seniority like a crown of thorns. She viewed every new hire, especially one as bright and efficient as Anna, as a direct threat. Jessica's compliments were always double-edged, her offers of help laden with sugary poison designed to trip Anna up. She would accidentally switch table assignments to leave Anna with notoriously difficult guests or conveniently forget to relay a special request, hoping to see Anna flustered and reprimanded. Anna handled everything with a silent stoicism that only seemed to further enrage Jessica. On this particular Tuesday, the air in the restaurant was charged with tense, expectant energy. A reservation had been made under a name that caused a murmur of panic among management, Klaus Richter. Anna had heard Mr. Harrison mutter the name on the phone before, his voice an octave higher than usual. Yes, Mr. Richter's assistant. Of course, table 12 by the window. Absolutely. Our finest staff will be at your disposal. Anna knew the name. Anyone who followed international business did. Klaus Richter was an industry titan, a German engineering magnate whose company, Richter Industries, had a reputation for innovation as fierce as its CEOs for ruthlessness. Financial news articles described him as a corporate predator, a brilliant yet brutally unforgiving leader who had built an empire by acquiring and dismantling competitors. He was infamous for his volcanic temper and his disdain for anything he deemed mediocre. As the evening rush began, Mr. Harrison called a brief, tense staff meeting in the kitchen, the scent of garlic and truffle oil wafting in the air. "Listen up," he snapped, his eyes scanning their faces. "Klaus Richter dines with us at 7. This is not a drill. I want impeccable service, perfect. He's a VIP of the highest caliber. One mistake, one complaint, and it reflects on all of us." His gaze lingered on Anna a moment too long. "Hinson, you'll be at table 12. A murmur went through the other waitstaff. Jessica shot Anna a look that was a toxic cocktail of triumph and pity. Table 12, with a client like Richter, was the ultimate trial by fire. It was Harrison's way of testing her, or perhaps setting her up for failure. "Sir, are you sure?" Anna asked, her voice calm and even. "Jessica has more experience with our most demanding clientele." Harrison's lips thinned into something resembling a smile. "I'm sure, Hinson. I want our best on display. Don't disappoint me." Jessica smirked, turning to polish a wine glass with unnecessary vigor. Anna felt a familiar knot tighten in her stomach. This wasn't just about a difficult customer. It was about surviving another night, about earning the tips that would pay for next semester's textbooks, about enduring the casual cruelties of a world that saw her as nothing more than hands carrying plates. As she smoothed her apron, she took a deep breath, straightened her shoulders, and prepared for the storm. The clock on the kitchen wall ticked ominously towards 7. At precisely 7 o'clock, a hush fell over the Golden Spoon's entrance. Klaus Richter's arrival wasn't just an entrance, it was a conquest. He didn't merely cross the threshold, he seemed to command the space to open for him. He was a man in his 50s, tall and severe, with a shock of silver hair slicked back from a high forehead. His suit was a charcoal gray masterpiece of tailoring, so sharp it looked capable of cutting glass. But it was his eyes that captured the room, pale blue granite chips that seemed to assess and dismiss everything that they saw in a single glance. By his side were two younger men, in equally expensive but less imposing suits. They radiated an aura of high-level anxiety. Their smiles were strained, their movements abrupt and uncertain. They were his lieutenants, young executives who clearly had learned that proximity to Klaus Richter was a high-risk, high-reward proposition. They stayed close to him, not at his side, like satellites caught in a powerful gravitational pull. Mr. Harrison appeared at the reception lectern, his professional composure cracking into a subservient smile. "Mr. Richter, welcome. Welcome to the Golden Spoon. It is an absolute honor to have you with us this evening." Richter's gaze briefly rested on Harrison, his expression unchanged. He offered no handshake, just a dry, dismissive nod. "My table," he declared, his voice a low growl with a distinct German accent. It was not a question or a request. It was an order. "Of course, this way," Harrison said, practically bowing as he led the trio to the best table in the house. Anna watched from her station, her heart beating with a steady, heavy rhythm against her ribs. She had served wealthy individuals before, tech magnates, heirs to old fortunes, celebrities hidden behind sunglasses. But this was different. There was an aura of pure, unadulterated power about Richter, a palpable coldness that seemed to absorb the warmth from the air. As Harrison seated them, he made a grand gesture toward Anna, who was now approaching the table with menus in hand. "And this is Anna, Mr. Richter. She will be your server tonight. She is one of our best." Anna forced a calm, professional smile. "Good evening, gentlemen. Welcome to the Golden Spoon." Richter's glacial eyes settled on her. They didn't just look at her, they scanned, evaluated, and filed her into a category she sensed was unflattering. He took the menu from her hand without a word, his fingers brushing hers for a fleeting instant. His touch was cold. The two executives followed suit, avoiding eye contact with Anna as if she were furniture. The initial interaction set the tone for what was to come. Richter wasn't simply a difficult client, he was a master of psychological warfare. He began by dissecting the wine list, his questions sharp and designed to trip her up. "This Chateau Margaux," he said, tapping a ridiculously expensive bottle with a finger. "The 2005, what was the exact precipitation in Bordeaux that summer?" Anna didn't flinch. "It was a remarkably dry season, sir, leading to lower yield but highly concentrated grapes. It is considered one of the decade's finest vintages." A flicker of something, annoyance, surprise, crossed Richter's face before being suppressed. He grunted a sound of reluctant concession and ordered the wine. When she returned to present the bottle, he observed her every move like a hawk, his gaze critical as she expertly uncorked, allowing the wine to breathe. He dismissively waved off the offer to taste it himself. "Just serve it." The meal proceeded as a series of calculated, petty provocations. He sent back his appetizer, claiming the seared scallops were a degree overcooked. He complained the ambient lighting was bland and that the music was an offense to the ears. Each complaint was delivered in a low, clipped tone, aimed not just at her, but at his cowering associates, who mumbled their agreement. It was a performance, and Anna was the unwitting supporting actress in his display of dominance. Through it all, she remained a fortress of calm professionalism. She apologized gracefully, replaced the dish without argument, and spoke with the manager about adjusting the lights, all with a serene smile that she hoped concealed the growing tension inside her. She felt like she was walking a tightrope over a canyon, with Mr. Harrison watching from one side and Richter from the other, both waiting for her to fall. Jessica was a vulture circling overhead, catching Anna's eye from across the room with an expression of blatant glee. The main courses had just been served. Richter was in the middle of a diatribe about a recent acquisition, his voice cutting through the restaurant's soft hum. Anna approached the table with a pitcher of iced water, her movements silent and efficient. She moved to refill Richter's glass, a task she had performed 1,000 times. But at that exact moment, one of the executives, gesticulating emphatically as he tried to agree with his boss, bumped the edge of the table. It was a tiny, almost imperceptible movement, but it was enough. A single drop of water escaped the pitcher's spout. It arced through the air and landed silently on the sleeve of Klaus Richter's immaculate gray jacket. The world seemed to stop. Richter froze, his hand halting halfway to his mouth. He slowly lowered his fork. The two executives stared, their faces draining of color. Mr. Harrison, watching from across the dining room, looked like he had just witnessed a car crash. Anna's heart plummeted. "I am so terribly sorry, sir," she began, her hand reaching for a fresh napkin, but Richter didn't even glance at her. He raised a hand to silence her, his eyes still fixed on the tiny dark spot on his sleeve, as if it were a mortal wound. Then, with a theatrical sigh of profound disgust, he turned to his two associates. Believing himself protected by the ignorance of an American waitress, he switched to his native German. The words that came out were not merely angry, they were laden with venomous contempt. "Look at this clumsy girl," he said. "They hire these empty pretty things and call it service. She probably has the intelligence of a garden gnome. All she's good for is standing around and looking decorative, utterly incompetent." His executives let out nervous, subservient chuckles. In their world, the boss was always right, and the boss was always funny. They looked at Anna with a fresh layer of pitying disdain, secure in their shared secret, their whispered language. They had no idea that for Anna, it was no secret at all. Every hateful word had landed not on deaf ears, but in a mind that understood its structure, its nuance, and its brutal intent with perfect, devastating clarity. The shield of her professionalism finally cracked, not with a bang, but with a chilling silence. The German words hung in the air, invisible and poisonous. For everyone else in the vicinity, the nervous executives, Mr. Harrison hovering, a nearby couple pretending not to listen, it was just a murmur in a foreign tongue. The sound of a powerful man, annoyed. But for Anna, the world had tilted on its axe. The insult wasn't a general complaint about service. It was a deeply personal, degrading attack on her intelligence and her worth as a person. Empty pretty thing. The intelligence of a garden gnome, utterly incompetent. Each phrase was a precisely guided missile designed to annihilate her dignity under the assumption that she was deaf to its meaning. For a long moment, she did nothing. She simply stood there, the water pitcher still in her hand, her face a carefully constructed mask of neutrality. Inside her, a storm raged. It was the familiar sting of being underestimated, of being judged by her apron and her smile, while her mind, the part of her she valued most, was dismissed as non-existent. It was the culmination of every condescending client, every passive-aggressive remark from Jessica, every moment she had to swallow her pride to pay her tuition. Klaus Richter seemed to savor the moment. He had demonstrated his power, made his point to his subordinates, and put the hired help firmly in her place with the elegant deniability of a foreign language. Finally, he turned his cold eyes back to Anna, expecting to see a nervous, apologetic girl, perhaps on the verge of tears. He was ready to wave his hand dismissively and send her scurrying, but that was not what he saw. He watched as her back straightened. It was a subtle shift, but it transformed her entire posture from deference to one of dignified defiance. Her chin lifted ever so slightly. The polite, empty smile of a waitress vanished, replaced by an expression of deep, glacial calm. She placed the water pitcher deliberately on the service stand next to the table, her movements unhurried and precise. Then she looked directly at him. Her eyes, which he had dismissed as merely decorative, were now sharp, intelligent, and locked onto his with an unnerving intensity. The two executives felt the sudden shift in the atmosphere. Their nervous chuckles died in their throats. Something was wrong. The girl wasn't cowering. She was watching them. Mr. Harrison, sensing a disaster of epic proportions unfolding, started to move toward the table, his face a mask of panic. He was ready to intervene, to apologize profusely, to offer to dry clean the billion-dollar suit, to fire Anna on the spot if necessary. But he was too late. The silence had stretched long enough to become charged and uncomfortable. It was Anna who finally broke it. When she spoke, her voice was not loud, but it cut through the dining room's ambient hum with the clarity of a resonant bell. She addressed Klaus Richter, and she did not speak English. She spoke in perfect, formal, academic German. The accent was flawless, the diction clear, the German of a lecture hall in Heidelberg, not a back alley in Berlin. "Sir," she said, "your assumption that my role in this establishment correlates with a lack of intelligence is as flawed as your understanding of dative case grammar. The correct phrase would not have been the one you used, but a more appropriate construction. But perhaps linguistic precision should not be expected from a man whose character is clearly so incompetent. She delivered the words without a trace of anger or hysteria. Her tone was cool, factual, and utterly devastating. She had not merely understood his insult, she had dissected it, corrected his grammar as a professor would a student, and then hurled his own word, incompetent, back at him like a polished dagger. The effect was instantaneous and absolute. Klaus Richter's face, which had been a mask of arrogant disdain, seemed to crumble. His mouth dropped open slightly. The blood drained from his face, leaving behind a pale, waxy sheen. His ice-blue eyes, for the first time, showed not arrogance, but pure, unadulterated shock. It was the look of a chess master who had just been checkmated by a pawn. The two executives gawked. They looked from Anna to their boss and back again, their brains struggling to process the impossible reality of what had just happened. This waitress, this American girl, had just intellectually dismantled one of Europe's most feared men in his own language. From across the room, Jessica's jaw slackened, the wine glass in her hand frozen mid-polish. Even Mr. Harrison, who had been hurrying toward the table, stopped a few feet away, his mind reeling. He didn't understand German, but he understood the universal language of a powerful man being rendered speechless. The silence that followed was no longer merely awkward. It was a vacuum that drew the attention of surrounding tables. The clinking of silverware ceased. Whispered conversations faded. In that moment, in the opulent heart of the Golden Spoon, a waitress in a simple white uniform held the entire room and a billionaire's crumbling ego in the palm of her hand. The tableau held for an eternity measured in heartbeats. Klaus Richter, a man who commanded boardrooms and dictated the fates of multinational corporations, was frozen. His face was a canvas of disbelief. The linguistic trap had snapped shut, and he was the one caught in its jaws. His authority, built on a foundation of intimidation and the presumed intellectual inferiority of others, had been vaporized by a 5'7" waitress holding a water pitcher. His first instinct was rage. A dark flush began to creep up his neck, a storm forming behind his eyes. How dared she? How dared this Anna speak to him like that? But the rage was immediately checked by a more powerful and less familiar emotion, humiliation. He had been expelled. His casual cruelty, spoken under what he believed was a cloak of invisibility, had been laid bare for his subordinates to witness. He had tried to be the predator, only to find his prey had sharper teeth. The two young executives were in a state of silent panic. Their careers depended on navigating the treacherous currents of Richter's mood. They had chuckled at his insult, making themselves complicit. Now they were caught in the crossfire. They looked at Anna with a new kind of terror, as if she had just revealed herself to be a mythical creature. One of them, a younger man named Thomas, swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing. It was Mr. Harrison who finally broke the spell. Rushing forward, his face gleaming with sweat, he began a torrent of apologies. "Mr. Richter, I am so terribly sorry. I don't know what she said, but I can assure you this is not the standard of the Golden Spoon. This is unacceptable. Utterly unacceptable. Henson, you're—" "Silence," Richter growled. The word was in English, a whip-crack of sound that silenced Harrison instantly. Richter's eyes had not left Anna's face. The shock was slowly receding, replaced by a dangerous, reluctant curiosity. This was an unexpected variable in his perfectly ordered world. He was not accustomed to being surprised. He leaned forward slightly, his voice low and intense. He switched back to German, the language of their confrontation. "Who are you?" Anna met his gaze unflinchingly. She replied in the same flawless German. "My name is Anna Henson. I am your waitress." The simplicity of her answer was another blow. She wasn't grandstanding or gloating. She was stating a fact, refusing to let him define her by her job while also not denying it. "That's not what I asked," Richter pressed, his voice tight. "Where did you learn to speak my language like a native? Not just speak it, understand it." He was testing her again, looking for a weakness, a crack in this inexplicable armor. He expected an answer like, "A few college classes," or "My grandmother was German." Anna took a silent breath before replying. "I spent a year on a full academic scholarship at the University of Heidelberg, studying comparative linguistics and Germanic philology. My thesis was on the sociolinguistic impact of dialectal variations in post-unification Germany." Her reply was a masterful tactical strike. It wasn't just a statement, it was a credential. Heidelberg, philology, thesis. These were words from his world, the world of academia, intellect, and precision. She had just laid her qualifications on the table, and they were, in their own way, as impressive as his corporate ledger. Richter leaned back in his chair, as if he had been physically shoved. Heidelberg, he knew it well. It was Germany's most prestigious university, a cradle of intellectual giants. He had just insulted a Heidelberg scholar, dismissing her as an empty child. The irony was so thick it was suffocating. One of the executives, emboldened by a desperate need to fix the situation, cleared his throat and spoke to Richter in German. "Sir, perhaps we should just— the food is getting cold." Richter shot him a look that could freeze fire. "Silence, Marcus. You laughed like a hyena. You're as much an idiot as I am." Marcus visibly shrank in his seat, his face turning a mottled red. The billionaire turned his attention back to Anna. The game had changed. This was no longer about a spilled drop of water or a rude remark. This was a battle of wits, and he had been outmatched. For the first time in a long time, Klaus Richter was genuinely intrigued. This young woman possessed a rare combination of intelligence, composure, and courage. She hadn't just defended herself. She had counterattacked with surgical precision. Such qualities were rare. Such qualities were valuable. He looked at her, truly looked at her for the first time. He saw past the uniform to the sharp, analytical mind behind her calm eyes. He saw the steel in her spine. In the brutal calculus of his world, assets were to be acquired. "Mr. Harrison," he said, his voice now in crisp, authoritative English. "Take your hand off her." Harrison froze, his hand dropping from Anna's arm as if burned. "She's not going anywhere," Richter continued, his gaze unblinking. "In fact, I believe Ms. Henson and I have something further to discuss." He gestured to the empty chair at his table. "Please," he said to Anna, the word sounding foreign and stiff on his tongue. "Sit down." The invitation, or rather, the command, sent another ripple of shock through the room. A billionaire asking a waitress to join him at his table. The entire social order of the Golden Spoon had been turned upside down. Anna stood there, caught between her fuming manager and the most formidable man she had ever met, the architect of her humiliation, now offering her a seat at his table. The fallout was only just beginning. The invitation to sit was so extravagant, so contrary to the restaurant's rigid hierarchy, that for a moment no one moved. Anna looked at the offered chair, then at Klaus Richter's inscrutable face. Her mind raced. Was this another test? A trap? A way to further humiliate her in a more intimate setting? Mr. Harrison found his voice, stammering. "Mr. Richter, that is highly irregular. She's on duty. Staff are not permitted." "She is on duty for me," Richter cut him off without glancing at him. "And I am now conducting a private business meeting. I trust my privacy will be respected." He shifted his gaze to his two executives. "Marcus, Thomas, go and inspect the dessert menu at the bar. Take your time." The two men, grateful for the reprieve, scrambled from their chairs and scurried toward the bar, leaving a supercharged vacuum at the table. Richter's eyes returned to Anna. "Miss Henson, please." Her training, her instincts, everything screamed at her to decline, to maintain the professional distance that was her only protection. But a stronger, more defiant urge took over. He had started this. He had dragged her into this bizarre confrontation. She would see it through. With a silent grace that belied the inner turmoil, Anna pulled out the chair and sat, her back straight as a rod. Across the dining room, Jessica watched, her mouth agape. This was not how the story was supposed to end. Anna was supposed to be fired, humiliated, sent home in tears. Instead, she was sitting at table 12, opposite Klaus Richter, as if she were an honored guest. A poisonous envy, sharp and hot, flooded Jessica's veins. For a few moments, Richter simply studied Anna. "You are not what you seem, Miss Henson," he said, his English precise. "Most people aren't, Mr. Richter," she replied, her voice even. "Touché," he conceded, a hint of a smile touching his lips. It didn't reach his eyes. "Your German is more than fluent. It is academic. Why are you working here, serving expensive food to people like me?" It was the question she had asked herself 1,000 times. She decided to speak the simple truth. Because Heidelberg scholarships don't pay rent in New York City or Columbia tuition. This is an honorable job that pays the bills. She spoke the words with a quiet dignity that was, in itself, a rebuke to his earlier insult. "Honor does not pay for opportunities," he countered, dismissing the sentiment with a wave of his hand. "Intellect does. Courage does. You displayed both. Those are commodities, I understand. They are commodities I invest in. Anna remained silent, waiting. My company, Richter Industries, is finalizing a major acquisition of an American tech firm based in San Francisco. The deal is complex. The cultural and linguistic barriers are significant. My American team is competent, but they lack nuance. They see the words, but they don't understand the music behind them. The German team is equally inept. They see everything in black and white. He leaned forward again, his intensity creating a palpable pressure. I need a bridge, not just a translator who can swap words from one language to another. I have dozens of those. I need someone who understands the psychology of both cultures, someone who can read the subtext in a negotiation, someone who can tell me when a yes actually means no, and when a polite smile is masking a deep reservation. I need a cultural interpreter, not just a language one. The implication hung in the air. Anna's heart began to beat faster. She saw where this was going, but it seemed too surreal to be true. I am offering you a position at Richter Industries, he said, the words dropping like stones into a silent pond. You would work directly with my executive team as a special consultant and cultural liaison for this merger. The position is based in New York for the first 6 months, then San Francisco. The salary will be $180,000 a year, plus a signing bonus. Anna felt the air leave her lungs. $180,000. It was a number so large, so far from her reality of counting tips and worrying about textbook costs, that it barely seemed real. It was a life-changing, debt-eradicating sum. It was freedom, and it was being offered by the man who, no more than 20 minutes ago, had compared her intelligence to that of a garden gnome. The jarring shift was staggering. "Why?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Why me?" "Because you are not afraid of me," Richter stated simply. "Everyone in my company is afraid of me. They tell me what I want to hear. You, Ms. Henson, told me the truth, even when it was dangerous. That is a rare and valuable trait. In my business, it is worth more than a dozen Harvard MBAs. So, what do you say?" Anna looked at his expectant face, the opulent dining room that had been her prison, and the open door he was presenting, but her mind was a whirlwind of conflict. Could she work for him, this arrogant, cruel man? Could she accept a future that sprang from a moment of such profound disrespect? "I have to think about it," she said, her voice regaining some of its strength. Richter nodded slowly, a glint of respect in his eyes. He had expected immediate, grateful acceptance. Her hesitation intrigued him further. "Very well. Be at my New York office tomorrow morning at 9. Here's the address." He slid a thick, embossed business card across the table. "We will discuss the details. Do not be late." With that, he rose, tossed a few $100s onto the table, far more than needed to cover the bill, and walked out of the restaurant without looking back. Anna remained seated, dazed, the business card feeling heavy and hot in her hand. The entire restaurant stared at her. Mr. Harrison looked like he was about to have an aneurysm, but the most dangerous gaze came from Jessica. As Anna finally stood and walked toward the staff area, Jessica cornered her by the kitchen doors. "So," Jessica hissed, her voice dripping acid, "what was all that about? Did you offer him something not on the menu?" The insinuation was vile, but Anna was too emotionally drained to take the bait. "It was a misunderstanding, Jessica. A misunderstanding that gets you a private audience and a business card." Jessica scoffed, narrowing her eyes. "I don't know what you did, but I'm not going to let some college girl come in here and get special treatment. I've worked here for 5 years. I've earned my place." Over the next 2 hours, as Anna tried to finish her shift, the sabotage began. A tray of drinks she was carrying was subtly nudged by Jessica, accidentally bumping into her, causing them to spill all over the floor. A food order she put in was lost, causing her table to wait 40 minutes and earning her a severe reprimand from Harrison. Jessica began whispering to the other staff, casting suspicious glances at Anna, sowing seeds of rumor and resentment. Anna realized that even if she refused Richter's offer, her life at the Golden Spoon was over. Jessica, fueled by corrosive envy, would make every remaining shift a living hell. The world she had known, the cage that had also been her sanctuary, was already starting to crumble around her. The choice was no longer just about taking an offer. It was about escaping a place that had suddenly become toxic and untenable. The walk home from the Golden Spoon felt like a journey through a dream. The familiar New York streets, the blare of horns, the chatter of late-night crowds, the scent of hot dogs from street vendors. It was all a muted backdrop to the roaring chaos in Anna's mind. In her pocket, Klaus Richter's business card felt less like paper and more like a heavy artifact from another dimension. Klaus Richter, CEO, Richter Industries. The stark minimalist font seemed to mock the messy reality of her life. Her apartment was a small, fourth-floor walk-up, her sanctuary filled with towers of books on linguistics, history, and poetry. It was a space entirely her own, paid for with aching feet and forced smiles. Tonight, however, it felt small and constricting. She sank onto her worn sofa, the springs groaning in protest, and stared at the card. $180,000. The number was an absurdity. It was the solution to every problem that kept her awake at night. It meant the end of student loans that hung over her future like a guillotine. It meant no more choosing between a new textbook and a decent meal. It meant she could finally help her mother, a retired teacher living on a meager pension in Ohio. It meant she could step out of the shadows of service and into the world she had studied for, a world of international consequence. But the price of this golden ticket was loyalty to Klaus Richter. She replayed the scene in her mind, the ugly German words echoing with perfect clarity. Clumsy, empty, incompetent girl. He had not just insulted her, he had savored it. He had used his power and his language to dehumanize her, for sport, to entertain his sycophants. Could she work for such a man? Could she sit in meetings with him, assist him, and contribute to his success, knowing that the foundation of their relationship was his own casual cruelty? To accept his offer felt like a form of complicity, a tacit endorsement of his behavior. It felt like selling a part of her soul. Her phone vibrated. It was a text from her mother. "Just checking in, sweetie. Hope you had a good shift. Love you." Anna's eyes welled up with tears. Her mother had sacrificed so much for her, working 2 jobs for years to ensure Anna had the best possible education. It was her mother who had nurtured her love for languages, buying her used German and French storybooks at thrift stores. This job offer wasn't just about her own future. It was a chance to repay that lifetime of love. How could she turn her back on that? The conflict tore at her. One path offered integrity but a continued struggle. The other offered a bright future but was paved with moral compromise. Her thoughts were interrupted by another buzz, a message from a coworker, a kind busboy named Leo. "Hey, are you okay? Jessica's telling everyone you got a client's number and Harrison is furious. Just watch your back." Anna's heart sank. Jessica wasn't just whispering. She was building a narrative, a false, ugly story that would taint Anna's reputation long after she left. The sabotage was escalating. It confirmed what she already knew. Her time at the restaurant was over. One way or another, she couldn't go back to that environment, not now. The illusion that it was a safe, if temporary, workplace had been shattered. She stood up and walked to her desk, pushing aside a stack of papers on Noam Chomsky's universal grammar theory. She opened her laptop and began to research. For hours, she delved into the world of Klaus Richter and Richter Industries. She read financial reports, press releases, and scathing opinion pieces. He was described as a visionary monster, a brilliant butcher, and a necessary evil in the ruthless world of global tech. His company was known for aggressive acquisitions, but also for groundbreaking innovations in sustainable engineering. He fired people without a second thought, but also funded massive philanthropic projects in education and the arts. He was not a simple villain. He was a complex, contradictory, powerful force, and he was offering her a seat at his table. Anna thought about her studies. Linguistics wasn't just about grammar and vocabulary. It was about understanding that meaning is shaped by context, power dynamics, and perception. The job he offered was a real-world application of everything she had learned. It would be the ultimate test. A new feeling began to crystallize, cutting through the fear and indignation, a spark of defiance. Why should she be the one to back down? Richter had underestimated her once. Perhaps the best way to answer his insult was not to walk away, but to step into his world and prove him wrong every single day. She wouldn't just be his translator. She would be a constant living reminder of his misjudgment. She wouldn't be his subordinate. She would be his intellectual equal, a professional who commanded respect not because he gave it, but because she earned it. The decision settled not with a sense of joy or relief, but with a quiet, firm resolve. She would go to that meeting, she would take the job, but she would do it on her own terms. She would set boundaries. She wouldn't be one of his cowering executives. She would be Anna Hinson, scholar, linguist, and consultant. Her value wasn't something he was giving her with a salary. It was something she brought to his company. She spent the next hour drafting an email to Mr. Harrison, a simple, professional resignation, effective immediately. She cited an unexpected and sudden professional opportunity. She did not mention Klaus Richter. She would not give Jessica the satisfaction of knowing the truth. Let them believe what they wanted. She was already moving on. As dawn broke, painting the New York skyline in shades of gray and rose, Anna showered and chose her outfit with the care of a general preparing for battle. She didn't have a corporate wardrobe, but she had a simple, well-fitting black dress, a classic blazer she'd found at a thrift store, and sensible low heels. She pulled her hair back into a sleek professional bun. Looking in the mirror, she no longer saw the tired waitress of the night before. She saw a woman standing at a crossroads, choosing the harder, more dangerous, but infinitely more promising path. She was terrified, but she was ready. She picked up the business card from her desk and walked out the door, leaving her old life behind. The Richter Industries building was a glass and steel monument piercing the Manhattan sky, a testament to the ego of the man who built it. Its lobby was a cavernous, intimidating space of polished black marble and stark white walls adorned with abstract art that likely cost more than Anna's entire college tuition. The air was cool and smelled faintly of money and ambition. Men and women in impeccably tailored suits moved with silent, brisk purpose, their faces set in masks of serious determination. It was a world away from the controlled chaos of the Golden Spoon. Anna walked up to the imposing reception desk, her low heels echoing softly on the marble floor. Anna Henson for Klaus Richter. I have a 9 o'clock appointment. The receptionist, a sleek woman with an edgy haircut, looked at her with a flicker of surprise. Anna didn't look the part, not the usual procession of investment bankers or corporate lawyers, but a quick tap on her keyboard brought up the appointment. The surprise shifted to professional deference. Of course, Ms. Henson. Mr. Richter is expecting you. Please take the express elevator to the 80th floor. His executive assistant will meet you there. The elevator ride was a silent, dizzying ascent. As the city shrunk below, Anna's resolve wavered for a second. What was she doing here? She was a linguist, a student. She was about to walk into the lion's den, armed with nothing but a few degrees and a stubborn sense of her own worth. She took a deep breath, clutching her portfolio, and remembered the promise she had made to herself. She wasn't here for a job interview. She was here for a negotiation. The 80th floor opened into a serene, minimalist office space with a panoramic view of Central Park. A stern-looking woman with a headset, Richter's executive assistant, greeted her without a smile and ushered her towards a pair of massive oak doors. Mr. Richter will be with you in a moment. Anna was led into a vast corner office. 3 of the walls were floor-to-ceiling windows, making her feel as if she were floating above the city. The 4th wall was filled with books, not just business texts, but philosophy, history, and classical literature in German, English, and French. A large, formidable desk stood like an altar in the center of the room. Klaus Richter was not there. It was a classic power play, to make her wait in his intimidating space to remind her of his importance and her insignificance. But Anna didn't feel insignificant. She felt curious. She walked to the bookshelf, her fingers lightly brushing the spines. Schiller, Goethe, Kant, but also Twain, Faulkner, and Whitman. The man was cultured, a fact that both intrigued and disturbed her. He wasn't an ignorant brute. His cruelty was the product of a sharp, educated mind. I see you are admiring my collection, Ms. Henson. Richter's voice came from the doorway. He had entered silently. He wasn't dressed in a suit, but a simple, dark cashmere sweater and slacks, an intentional choice to appear more approachable, to shift the power dynamic. Anna didn't buy it. A person's library can be very telling, she replied, turning to face him. And what does mine reveal about me? He asked, walking towards his desk. That you value the architecture of great arguments, she said, and that you are a man who understands the power of words. A flicker of a genuine smile touched his lips this time. Indeed, which is why I believe we have business to discuss. Please, sit. He gestured to a chair in front of his desk. It was still a supplicant's position, but less formal than the night before. Thank you, Mr. Richter, Anna began, remaining standing. Before we discuss your offer, I have a few terms of my own. His eyebrows lifted. This was not in his script. You have terms? Yes, Anna said, her voice steady and clear. First, our professional relationship will be founded on mutual respect. My role is to provide expert consultation. I will not be a go-for, nor will I tolerate being spoken to in a demeaning manner in any language. My insights and analysis are to be considered, not just heard. She paused, letting the words sink in. Richter watched her, his expression inscrutable. Second, she continued, while I will be dedicated to the success of this project, I am still completing my master's degree at Columbia. I will require a degree of flexibility in my schedule to complete my coursework and thesis. My work for you will not suffer, but my education is non-negotiable. And third, she finished, I accept the salary you proposed, but the signing bonus you mentioned, I want that redirected. Richter Industries has a philanthropic foundation. I want that amount used to create a scholarship fund for humanities students, specifically linguistics, at Columbia University. We can call it the Richter Industries Scholarship for Cultural Understanding. She had laid all her cards on the table. The last demand was her masterstroke. It was audacious, yes, but also brilliant. It transformed the bonus, a simple financial transaction, into something meaningful. It forced him to put his money where his mouth was, to publicly validate the very field of study he had privately mocked. It was a checkmate. Richter was silent for a full minute, his interlaced fingers covering his mouth as he stared at her. He had expected a negotiation over salary, vacation days, maybe a corner office. He had not expected a lecture on respect and a demand for a philanthropic legacy. He had tried to buy an asset, and the asset was now rewriting the terms of its own acquisition. Finally, he lowered his hands. He leaned back in his chair and let out a short, sharp laugh. It wasn't a mocking laugh. It was a sound of genuine, amused astonishment. Miss Hinson, he said, a slow smile spreading across his face. You are more dangerous than I thought. He extended a hand across the vast desk. Welcome to Richter Industries. You will draft the scholarship proposal with our foundation director this afternoon. As Anna took his hand, the grip firm and yet she knew this was not an ending. It was the beginning of the most challenging, complex chapter of her life. Working with Klaus Richter would be a daily battle of wills, a constant navigation of his formidable intellect and his volatile temper. But as she looked out the window at the expansive city below, a city of infinite possibilities, she no longer felt like she was floating. For the first time, she felt like she had a place to stand. She had walked into the lion's den, and she had not only survived, she had emerged with the lion's respect. The waitress was gone. In her place was a woman who knew her worth in every language. That single moment of defiance, born from a cruel insult, didn't just change Anna's job, it changed her destiny. Her story is a powerful reminder that our true value isn't defined by the uniform we wear or the job we do, but by the strength of our character and the depth of our intellect. Klaus Richter thought he was putting a humble waitress in her place, but instead he found the one person who could stand up to him and command his respect. It shows that sometimes the quietest voices have the most powerful words, and true strength isn't about shouting louder, but about knowing exactly when and how to speak your truth. If Anna's incredible story inspired you, please like this video and share it with someone who needs a reminder of their own worth. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and tap the bell so you don't miss our next story of unexpected triumph. If you'd like to support stories of Black women and help us continue sharing inspiring tales, please consider making a donation. Your generosity helps us bring more powerful narratives to light.